Hello, and welcome to the Physical Therapy Owners Club. I'm Nathan Shields, and I've got a returning guest, old coaching client, good friend. We had him on the podcast before. We got Steve Edwards from Achieve PT in Las Vegas. Steve, thanks for coming back, man.
Nathan, my pleasure.
Yeah. The episode that we had with you earlier this year in 2023, I think it came out in January. You talked a lot about your plan and your strategic plan to drop certain insurances to effectively increase average reimbursement per visit, increase profit margins, you name it, right?
Yeah.
And I'd recommend people reference that episode because you shared a lot of technical in the weeds stuff about what you were doing. And thanks for doing so. That was awesome that you were willing to share that.
Yeah, no problem.
But today we want to talk about a couple of other things, but we can't really get into the other things until we ask, what's the update? Tell us how things are going this year in terms of your fight to increase average reimbursement rates. Have you dropped any more insurances? Do you plan to drop insurances? Just give us an update where you've been this year and what you're looking forward to do.
Okay. Well, again, thanks for having me on. I'm kind of excited to talk about this as well. 2023 has been a great year. As kind of mentioned it to you, I feel like we've been at this now long enough without, after dropping these insurances, we kind of know what our reimbursement is going to be. We've kind of seen the trends, whether or not people are going to stick around, come out of network, those that are or aren't. And so we've seen not only our average reimbursement go up by, so we're around 40%, maybe a little bit more.
It's more. It's more. That's like 60 or 70%. Come on.
But, and that's if we're including, we talked about attorney liens.
Yeah.
I think 10 months ago or whatever. That was
motor vehicle accidents.
Supplement it a bit. It's about 18 to 19% of our business.
Okay.
And so those take, the life of that lien to finally get settled is, I think the average is right around 22 months.
Mm-hmm.
So you're hanging on to that for about 2 years. And we're just coming to that point now. So we're starting to get paid on those somewhat regularly. And so that increases that reimbursement quite a bit. So
right.
We'll drop those low payers, substitute them for, 20% of our business with these that are reimbursing at a much higher rate, then our reimbursement is going to go up quite a bit, percentage-wise patients. So
so things have really stabilized. And give me a little bit about your experience regarding people who are now coming to you out of network. Are you seeing a handful of those? Are people open to it? What was your experience there?
Yeah, it's interesting. One insurance in particular that we see quite a few out of network with. And, as you're going through the benefits, it's Blue Cross Blue Shield, actually. They're the ones that those patients tend to not have too big of an issue with out-of-network benefits. It seems like their in-network aren't too far off anyway.
Yeah.
Some of the other insurances we dropped, I think they're dramatically different within network, out-of-network. So generally, they'll try to find an in-network plan or a in-network provider if they can. But those that are staying with us, those out-of-network, it's interesting. I'll look at their benefits and I'll see they have some of them just have no deductible, very low deductible, met their out-of-pocket max. But when they hear the words out-of-network, they don't even want to play. It's interesting. You'll see different mindsets from people. And then other ones, well, they'll have a fairly large deductible. Maybe it'll be $3,000 or even $4,000. And they'll not have an issue with it coming out of networks. You never really know, look at the patient. I look at it and I'm predicting in my mind, these are definitely people that are going to come, no issue at all. But it doesn't always work that way. But it seems like our percentage for those out of networks has stabilized and stays about the same.
Okay. Are you looking forward to dropping any more insurances in the next 6 to 12 months?
No, I think we're pretty set with where we're at.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Yeah, where we are. Our numbers are good. Numbers continue to actually go up. I think this last week, we hit our highest ever after dropping.
Oh, really?
So we're up to pretty much what we were prior to.
Oh, really? Yeah. So now you got this higher reimbursement rate and you're back to the similar total visit numbers that you were before. Is that because you've really pushed your marketing strategies in different areas, or do you think there's just a matter of time? What happened to bring it back up?
Yeah, I think it's more of our marketing. We've really done more to past patients.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, a lot of our email programs where we're hitting the past patients consistently. We've even done some to consumer. So we haven't done a whole lot of physician referral market, but more to consumer and past patients. And that's where we've seen our numbers come up. Right?
Oh, that's good to hear.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's easier. I always say, we talk about the 4 buckets of marketing. It's current patients, past patients, direct to consumer, and physician relationships, right? But the more you can put energy and effort into current and past patients, those are just high leverage opportunities. There's less effort with a greater return. There's less investment. It costs significantly less money with a greater return, because these are people that already know, like, and trust you, and you don't have to really convince them to come in the first place. It's just an invitation that they come back. So it's cool to see that you're leveraging those.
And these people already know plan of care. They recognize what physical therapy is. They know what your clinic is, what it has to offer, the experience they're going to get there. So yeah, it's not like you are trying to convince somebody, or a doctor trying to convince somebody to come to you. These past patients, current patients are for us, some of the greatest referral sources.
Right, exactly. And have you found yourself tapping into some of those current patients, or even the past patients that might have family and friends that they refer over to you? Are you tapping into that a little bit more too?
Yeah, 100%. Yep, constantly asking. We have a little reward system for current patients that refer friend or family. We also do, just a couple little things like the free consults for friends, family, that kind of thing. But definitely our email, in our email system, we have it set up so it's going out several times a week. And this is what we're doing this day. This is what we're doing on this day. This is what we're doing on this day, so that they're consistent. Patients are seeing them. So if there is something that maybe a past patient is thinking about therapy, they get hit once. Oh, that's right. Maybe you need to call. They get hit again. Maybe by the 7th time, they're like, okay, yeah, let me give them a call.
Right. Just to get into the weeds a little bit for the benefit of those who are listening, are you generating some of this content? Do you have a vendor that's helping you generate the content and send it out on a regular basis? Because I agree with you. They are only successful if they are routine. Yeah. If these are just one-off emails that you send once a month, I doubt you're going to get much traction at all. But what are some of the specifics as to your email campaigns?
So for the last 4 or 5 months, when we've really been hitting it, it was all in-house generated. Okay. Say, hey, listen, why don't we do this on this day? Let's do this on the Wednesday, on the Friday. But just recently, with a software vendor that actually has a number of different programs, or just good, I'll send out as an option.
And they're going to bring content with them. Yes. Oh, okay. That makes it awesome. Oh, good. That's great.
With video,
Okay. Combining some video in there would be great as well, because the open rate's greater.
Yeah.
Cool. Awesome. Well, and that brings me to the other part of the conversation I wanted to have with you, because Unsolicited sent me an email appreciating one of the episodes that I'd done recently. I thought that was awesome. Thank you for doing that. I don't get a lot of feedback about the podcast, so it's good to hear some positive stuff like that. But I said, one thing about you is I know that you've listened to podcasts in the past and have implemented what I've talked about, or what the guest has presented in the past, right? And I think that's important to highlight, because we can continually be learning all these things through the podcast or books, you name it. Yet if we're not implementing, why bother? And I think that's a real strong suit that I want to highlight in you. And the reason why I wanted to bring you on the podcast is for those who are listening, if you're just listening for the sake of, oh, that's a good idea. Oh, that's kind of cool that they're doing that, but not really taking advantage of what you've learned and implementing them and actually gaining some wisdom from them, then it's wasted time and energy. Point specifically is the fact that you listened to my interview with Sturdy McKee about going out of network contracts. How many times?
You know what? It had to be more than 10.
Yeah.
Because then I would stop it, and I would write down exactly what he was saying, how he was saying it, even though he wasn't giving full information, but I'm like, well, I can use it with my front office on what we're going to say on the phone, how we're going to say it, and I think what it was for me, not to get off with that, but, listening to that very first podcast, maybe the second podcast with you guys talking about just being so deep into the business, right? Not finding a way out. And me feeling those same feelings, and then seeing a pathway out, I was like, you know what? These guys know how to do it. I obviously don't know how to do it. So I'm going to listen and to all these guys you have on here. They have a path. They've got the recipe to get out of here. So if I just copy what's already working, I mean, I don't have the most original thoughts or ideas, obviously, but if I copy what they do and it's already working, then why can't it work in my, in my office? So yeah. So with Sturdy McKee, yeah, that dropping insurances, and we talked about the last time, just how, I was scared. I was fearful, and I was operating from fear. So the more information I could get on how to do it, the experiences they were having, that was like one more step for me to feeling more confident as to dropping them.
Yeah, and kudos to you for recognizing that a large majority of the guests that I have on are owners that at one time or another felt stuck. They felt like, I don't know what to do next. I've got 100 different things that I know I need to do, but I'm not moving forward as I feel like I'm working on them. I'm not gaining traction.
You get that feeling, they all came up with something.
Yeah, and they got through it.
Yeah.
Right. And whether it's the vehicle that we're talking about, the topic that we're discussing in that podcast, or something else, they got through it somehow. So you can lean on them as people who have been there, done that. Yeah. And they're willing to share a path, like you said. So like I said, kudos to you for taking that step, because I know people who have read all the books and seen all the podcasts and all the YouTube channels, yet they're still in the same space they were 5 years ago. Right. Yeah. And so you're in a much better space, implementing a program that you started 3 years ago, right? It took some time.
It did. Yeah. It wasn't quick at all, right? Yeah.
Yeah. But you're in a much different space, psychologically, financially, professionally than you were 3 years ago. I'm correct, right?
Yeah. And we talked about this before, but you know exactly what I was thinking, man. If there was a way for me just to drop this business altogether and be done, if somebody would give me an out, I probably would have taken it. And now, yes, it's the complete opposite of that. Yeah. It's funny. My wife and I were talking about this again the other day, and just talking about just the constant worry that you have. You walk into a patient, right? And you're like, oh crap, this patient, they're not paying me anything. How much time can I spend with them? And then you want to feel better about what you're doing. So if you can even engage the patient in talking to them about how poor their reimbursement is, that'll make me feel a little bit better, right? You walk out of the room and you're like, okay, well, good. I was able to get that off my chest. I feel a little bit better. And then you get that little dopamine rush, and then you realize that didn't solve anything. You go into the next patient. Maybe I can talk about it with them, right? And then you walk out of the room and realize, okay, did they benefit from the visit, or did I benefit from the visit? And you were just doing that over and over and over. You're in that worry cycle with coming up with the same question. What am I going to do? How can I get out of this? And there's no resolve to it. And so your podcast, in a sense, actually the coaching too, right? The coaching is kind of what got me going, and then recognizing, okay, these podcasts, that helps break that worry cycle and say, okay, we can take care of this. There's an option here. There are several options here.
You actually saw a light.
Yeah.
A light. There's a light at the end of this tunnel.
Yeah, 100%.
That's cool. Well, so Sturdy McKee was one. I want to highlight a couple of the others just to show how you've taken episodes of the podcast and made a significant change in your business. What's another one you would highlight?
One of the first ones, when I tried to go back and find it again, because I wanted to take some notes on it again, but I believe it was a therapist from Australia, and he talked about the recommended treatment. I just came up with recommended treatment plan, came up with another sheet that we could give to the patients, what to expect with physical therapy, the things we're going to go over on the first visit, give this sheet to us when they go home. They have any questions, it's already here for them. We've explained it. On the back is a graphic, kind of showing what physical therapy is going to look like throughout the process. It's going to take dips, but eventually we're going to get there as we go through these different stages of healing. But that recommended treatment plan, I love that idea of writing down, explaining to the patient, here's the process, here's what I recommend in terms of your treatment. We're going to go 3 times a week, next 6 weeks. I'm going to sign it. We're going to walk it up front, hand it to the front desk. I'm going to introduce you to the front desk. This is what I'm recommending, and then have them get scheduled. I just felt like we were missing, one, plans of cares weren't being completed.
Yeah.
We're just falling off. There was no accountability for where they were other than, just trying to call them. So this increased our not only plan of care percentage for those completing their plan of care, but I felt like it helped the patient kind of recognize, okay, this is what the plan is. It's not just a visit of physical therapy. Here's the plan. Help my therapist kind of recognize, hey, we've got some accountability here for the patient. This is what we've talked to him about. So I love that episode and how he explained it. I'm sure you know who I'm talking about.
I know who you're talking about, and I am racking my brain to remember him because he's the only guy that I've brought on from Australia.
Yeah.
And I still get his emails every week. And so I love the guy. Oh, I wish I recalled his name. And if I remember it by the end of the podcast, I'll post it for sure.
It seemed like it was one of the first few episodes.
I believe so. It was within the first 6 months, I'm sure. Yeah, okay. He was way back then. But you started implementing that. And so plan of care completion percentages went up. Overall patient engagement, right? I'm assuming went up in terms of maybe, I don't know if cancel rate might have gone up, but at least people were more engaged and willing to stay onto a plan of care because they said, here's my prescribed treatment plan. And I should expect that I'm not healed in 3 visits.
Yeah.
It's going to take some time.
And another positive just kind of byproduct of it was that the patient recognized that the whole team, we're here together for you. So therapists will walk up with the front office that we're not separate, accountability, taking you to the front office, introducing you again to our scheduler, making sure you're set up, making sure you don't have any more questions, just all of that, just flow a little bit better. And I think, like you said, it did help with cancellations as well. You see your cancellation as well as your arrival rate increase.
Yeah, I want to say his name is Paul, but I can't remember his last name. I'm actually looking through my emails now that you mentioned that because I feel bad because Paul is awesome.
I love that episode. It was incredible.
Tell me any other episodes that you feel really transformed your business a little bit.
Well, I worked for about a year on just having a clinic based on positivity. So I think it was Stephen Line out of Nebraska.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. The Feel Good Experience.
Right. And it was his book. What was his book called? Was it called The Feel Good Experience?
I think it was.
Okay.
The Feel Good Experience.
And on the front, there's like 5 stars, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember that.
So I read the book, took notes, gave it to my administrator, had her read it. And then because he focuses so much on just the 5 senses, creating positive vibes with those 5 senses. And then I wrote a policy and procedure on that in terms of our treatment, what we want patients to feel. And I love it, just how you immediately when they come in, visually, they need to have positive experience with visually what they're seeing. Lobby, face, audible wise, just hello, welcome to Achieve. He said scent. So we have, some, what are those oils, essential oils?
Yeah.
Go well, a mint for taste. And then he goes to the touch even, appropriate touch and all that. But every sense, and I think one of the things that really, I really liked is he's like, do you know how to be, I'm going to word it wrong, but do you know how to be, you can be a good PT, but you know how to be a great PT where you are putting aside basically your thoughts on what needs to happen right now in this treatment so that you can listen to the patient, make sure you're getting that therapeutic alliance and make sure you're doing something just to help them feel good. It doesn't necessarily, you're trying to gain some trust here, right? And so something that's going to help them feel good, get out of the clinic feeling much better so people aren't leaving in pain. So again, they're going to have those positive experiences. He talks about just compassion, releases dopamine and oxytocin. So you're getting this connection when you're being compassionate with a patient. So again, they're getting that positive vibes. So so we took a year and just studied that book and tried to implement everything we possibly could into our clinic.
And that's something that you did as a team. This wasn't just Steve deciding, hey, I'm going to read this and implement across the board and rearrange the front waiting room area and implement an essential oil candle or something like that. A lot of these ideas sound like they didn't come from you because you read this together as a leadership team.
Yeah, and first of all, it was all his ideas, 100%. Again, I'm great at copy. But the team, then the team we train the staff is on board, they recognize, we talk about the wording being very specific when somebody arrives. I want it to be more than just, are you so-and-so? Are you, this is your first visit? It's welcome to achieve, something. And, everybody has, I know every clinic has their way of how they want to greet. And we just want to make sure that ours is unique as well. And so that people feel that they actually are welcome. They're having a different experience than what they would maybe have at another doctor's office with the glass.
Yeah.
Put it, slide it,
privacy glass.
Close it again. Yeah. Doing everything they possibly can not to have contact with you.
Right.
We want to be the complete opposite.
Just to get an idea for those who are listening, like some of these episodes might not call to them, and that's fine. But what was it about that episode or even the other episodes that called to you about I really need to implement this? Was there something that was missing in your clinic that these episodes brought up in you? What happened there?
With him in particular, I would try to explain to my PTs in our training and stuff, kind of my thought process on what I wanted the clinic to be like, what the questions I wanted to be in therapeutic alliance when you're trying to build this relationship of trust with people. Talk to them about, hey, listen, don't worry so much about getting what it is best way to treat this patient. Right. Recognize that they need to feel comfortable before we can necessarily attack that. And so all these, I had these thoughts, but I couldn't necessarily put it in my own words. I wasn't sure how to explain that. I read that book and I was like, this is exactly what I think of forever. It just spelled it out so much better than how I was able to do it myself.
Do you feel like what you've done you were very specific about the wording that Sturdy McKee recommended, right? Yeah. And you took notes, obviously, and read the book from Steve Line, right? Do you feel like what you were doing, and also what we learned from Paul from Australia,
right?
Do you feel like after implementing these things over the past couple of years that you've really started to create a culture that was significantly different than what you had before amongst your team?
Yeah, it's funny. I was actually thinking about that the other day. I feel bad for my therapists that were with me a long time leading up to COVID and during COVID. Mm-hmm. And kind of left for one reason or another because I felt like they didn't have any structure, weren't any boundaries, weren't any expectations other than, guys, just stay with me here.
Yeah.
I had water. We'll get there eventually. I know something's going to turn here. I don't know what, but
hoping and praying.
Right. Something will happen. Something's going to change here, I'm sure. And I appreciated how hard they worked, but I also recognize that they didn't have the direction that they needed from an owner.
Yeah.
To them to be able to have their expectations met or, to be fulfilled in their job. And so I feel like these things now are just kind of filling the gaps to be able to provide for my team members, for my employees, to give opportunities, to give them, what they're looking for in the job.
And what do you think it's done for them? You've provided some structure, you've provided some leadership. What do you think it's done for your team?
Well, when you think about boundaries, whether you are a kid or, an adult, employee, whatever, if you know what your expectations are, what is required of you, what you shouldn't be doing.
Yeah.
And you just feel much safer in your environment. And so I feel like it's created almost I don't want to say safe environment, but it has in a sense that people just know what is expected and what they can get from me as well. Mm-hmm. There's no coming in going, oh man, what's today going to be like? Is he even going to be all right? Are we going to see him? Is he, he's just going to be so engaged with patient care? We just, it's that doggy paddling, trying to keep your head above water so you're not drowning, as opposed to, now having some structure and.
Well, and so you've taken the lead on a lot of changes in your clinic, right? And you've implemented some things, and you've received some coaching. You're implementing, and you get some coaching and whatnot. What do you see in yourself? How are you different as a leader nowadays?
Well, one, I can think about leading. I can think about future goals. Whereas, not to keep harping on the past, but, I would write out a goal or several goals at the beginning of the year, but I would have no idea how I was ever going to accomplish those goals. It kind of goes back to that same worry cycle. You're just asking the same question over and over. How do I get out of this? What am I going to do here? And there's no solution to that because I don't have the answers. I don't have a pathway here. And now, there's answers. There's goals that are attainable. You're not so, I don't know what I'm looking for, but just overwhelmed, constantly overwhelmed. And so these not only create structure, but allow for just success, business, personally, for my team members. They create a pathway for success that I didn't necessarily know how to do on my own. I just, I obviously didn't, because I've been doing this for a long time and couldn't come up with the solutions because I'm just kind of stuck.
Yeah. And I know you were out of treating for a while and now you're back in it because you had some people leave the clinic. But you have a pathway to get out of it again. You're like the rest of the world. You're looking for a PT and a PTA, right? However, you seem like you are mentally and from a leadership perspective in a different place when it comes to bringing on another provider and stepping away from patient care. Talk to me how you're a little bit different now compared to before.
Well, it's interesting. I talked to one of my PTs yesterday about this again, just how, as soon as we hire a PT, then I'll be stepping back. But I was typing up the onboarding plan and what we're going to do, how their day will be spent with me doing the onboarding, kind of talking about policy procedure, what I expect, in terms of therapeutic alliance, all the different things, recommended treatment plan, all those kind of things. And then they're going to spend 3 or 4 hours with you doing hands-on, seeing how it works, and so just like it gives me an opportunity to come up with ideas, as opposed to, again, feeling that stuck. When you're working from that part of your brain where you're just constantly stuck, I don't know how to get out of this.
Reactionary. Yes,
as opposed to the creative side, then it allows you to do so much more. So when you're working off of creativity, not that obviously I'm not the most creative because I'm copying everybody, but that's okay. It works for me and hopefully they're fine with it, but it allows me to come up with so much more in terms of what I can offer these new people coming on, their experience, a mentorship, a pathway into clinical director, a pathway into, profit sharing, those kind of things, which that's just not an option before.
Yeah. And I'm assuming your providers didn't have an onboarding process in the past.
Right. Yeah. I'm going to have you follow me for an hour and a half and then you're on your own.
Yeah. Significantly different in that one step alone, right? Because you actually came up with something.
Yeah, exactly.
Paul Wright.
Okay.
Paul Wright is the Australian. Paul Wright, Wright. Yeah, coming from Australia, he's a great one. Other episodes, maybe we don't need to get into it in detail, but other episodes that you really thought were highlights that you came across?
Well, Front Desk Guru, we ended up using her. Rockstar Recruiter, I used that. Steve Rapicelli, how he talked about his cash stretch flex, I think stretch plex.
He's doing stretch plex, but he talked about, developing cash-based programs.
Yeah. So we developed some cash-based programs in our clinic. We've got those going and those are doing well. And I'm hiring a PTA to kind of oversee some of the cash-based program stuff, but then also, do patient care as well. So
that's a good idea.
Yeah. So, it's just every episode, it seems like there's a little nugget or something you can get out of it.
How do you listen to a number of episodes, maybe week after week, but still focus on the one episode, but still focus on Steve Lyons, the feel-good experience?
Well, that's good. So, I'll listen to one on my way home. Usually, as you put one out, I'll listen to my way home. And if there's something in there that really kind of sparks something in me, maybe it's something I've been concerned about, maybe something that we're missing in the clinic and somebody just happens to mention something, then I'll listen to that one again, take some notes on it, talk with my administrator, type some things up. Maybe we'll come up with policy regarding it. But I still have my projects that I'm working on over here. From like in my time, this is what we're focusing on. This is what we're going to do training on.
Right. And And I should note, you are treating, but I'm assuming you're still setting aside admin time to work on some of these things.
Yeah. I've got several hours a week where I can still focus on the business.
Yeah. Just for those people who haven't really considered that, can you explain what your schedule is? Do you just take a Friday off? Do you take 2 half days? What are you doing?
Yeah, 2 half days, Tuesday and Thursday.
Okay.
Next Tuesday, Thursday, and then I'll use time at home. If I'm weekends, if I'm watching a game, then I'll have a computer in front of me or something like that. But try not much of that.
So 2 other things then has there been an episode recently that you're focused on now? And maybe it's not related to my podcast, but maybe it's related to a book you're reading, but is there something in particular that you're trying to implement in your clinic right now?
So, I'm looking at different things that will help me with marketing straight to the consumer.
Okay.
I don't like the idea. I want to be completely independent of physicians. So I think I talked to you about this in the past. We had 2 other clinics. At one point we were 3 clinics, right? Miserable. I think we talked about that, got out of that. And now I'm looking to do a second clinic within the next 12 to 18 months.
Oh, cool.
But I do not want, and then we'll kind of build off of that. I do not want to have that same experience of go knocking on physicians' doors, going, hey, I'm new, can you please send to me? And then walk out and go, man, I hope that was the person they're going to send to me. All those thoughts that we've had for the last 15 years. I don't want to experience that. So I want to see if we can be a little more independent in terms of when marketing specifically to the consumer, so that when we open doors, 75, 80% of our referrals are coming from that.
Yeah. I'm sure you've listened to him because you listen to most of the podcasts, but the one episode that comes to mind is an episode with Mike Bills.
Yeah.
From a few years ago. And I think he gave me an astounding statistic at his clinic. He said that 10% of his new patients are from physician referrals. And I mean, that's where you're heading for, right?
I would love to have that ratio. Yeah.
Right. And they spend, what did he say? He and his team spends like 45 minutes a week role playing, asking for a referral from current patients. And I'm just like, wow, that's crazy. So maybe it's worth a re-listen, but that's the one that comes to mind. And then tell me what books are you into, or what books have influenced you the last 12 to 18 months?
So I just ordered one yesterday. What was the name of it? I think it talks about an interviewing process.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about?
I think it's not Who Not How by Dan Sullivan and Benjamin Hardy. There's another one called Who.
Yeah.
And I know Pratik had recommended that to us a long time ago, but it's about top grading and the interview process, the hire process, that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Talking about 10 different areas of just kind of that you need to have in your business for staffing, hiring, retaining. So I want to read that and see if I can't create those 10, specific arears.
Especially because that's a big goal for you here over the next 6 months, right? Is to bring on a couple more providers, and who knows if you maybe bring on more, especially if you're looking to open up another clinic, you're going to want another provider as well, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So I want to make sure that's set, that's stable, that part of the business. Right. So anyway, I'd heard a few people talk about that book and thought, I need to check that one out.
Yeah. Cool. Well, hey, thanks for sharing your experience today. It's awesome to have you on and talk about the growth that you've made over the past few years. I'm, of course, pulling for you, being an ex-coach of yours. So it's cool to see where you're at now compared to back then. Anything else you want to say about what you've learned from the podcast or recent books or anything like that?
I will just put a plug in for coaching. Mm-hmm. If anybody is out there just even kind of on the fence whether or not they should do it or not do it, time-wise, financially-wise, just know you need some accountability, and you can't do it on your own. If you could, then you would already be there. And you need somebody to kind of question your thoughts, question your actions, somebody else to look at your business, your clinic, your ideas from a completely different perspective. So if anybody's even thinking about coaching, just do it. Just do it. Contact Nathan, get in touch with him. and he'll set you up right.
Thanks for the advertisement, dude.
Yeah, my pleasure.
I think I heard a good quote.
So why not?
Yeah, I heard a good quote yesterday. It was, if nothing changes, nothing changes.
Yeah.
Like if you're not willing to change what you're doing, then nothing changes. And you can be very comfortable there, but you can't complain because you're not willing to make any changes.
And that's the thing too. If you find yourself, that's the other thing too. If you're like, well, I don't even know if I need coaching. If you find yourself complaining constantly about your situation, what is it? There's an old quote out there talking about if you complain to two people, you're just kind of letting them know about the situation. But if it's more than that, then it's just complaining. You're just looking for somebody to justify, somebody you can place the blame onto so you don't have to, internally feel it. Right. But if you're even at that point, it's time. It's time. Just do it.
Exactly. Again, thanks for joining me today, Steve. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
All right. Have a great day.
Okay. I'll talk to you later.